Welcome to today's flow, and today we're going to be visiting another one of the elemental series, and we're going to be focusing on the element of air this week. So just sit comfortably and just allow the hands to rest somewhere comfortably. Allow the gaze to either become soft or the eyes might close down completely. Just allowing the breath to settle into its natural rhythm. So though we're not going to be forcing the breath to do anything unusual in this practice, we're definitely going to have the focus on the breath. And we're also going to be focusing on expanding into the chest area, creating space, creating the flexibility, so when needs be, the lungs can reach that capacity unhindered. So really noticing the breath. And just notice any areas that feel any restriction in any way. Where is the breath? Just making a mental note of all of these little things. And we'll see if they've changed when we come to the end of our practice today. So just beginning to bring some movement into the practice. Starting with some body circles. So just start to bring the chest over one knee, through centre, over the other, and taking it round the back. Again, you might incorporate the breath into this movement. Keeping the movement slow and deliberate. And just start to take that back in the opposite direction. Just complete the round that you're on, coming back to stillness, creating space in the side body now. So just take the right arm out to the side, fingertips resting on the floor, reaching the left arm up. Take a breath in and then just side bending over to the right. Really reaching to those left fingertips, anchoring the left buttock into the floor. Try to not have any tension in the neck. Let the head just dangle down towards the right shoulder. And then slowly pushing back up, taking the left hand down, reaching the right arm up. Take a breath in, expand, and then side bending over, reaching to the right fingertips. Again, checking in that the neck's heavy and not having any tension in it at all. Pressing into the left hand, coming back centre. Just take the hands behind the back, interlink the fingers. Breathe in, lifting the shoulders. Lift the hands away off of the back if comfortable. Taking a breath or two here. And then folding down, and if you want to, you could lift the arms off of the back. coming back upright, releasing the interlink. Take a few shoulder rolls in both directions. And then let's move around to a 4-point kneeling position. So setting yourself up on your hands and knees. Taking some cat-cow stretches. So breathing in, dipping the belly, taking the chest forwards. Breathing out, rounding the back, gazing towards the belly button. Seeing if you can make the movement and the breath in unison, incorporated together as one. Taking one more round, dipping the belly, and then rounding. Coming back to a neutral spine, and just make sure you have space in front of you on the mat, and just start to walk the hands forwards, dropping the forehead down towards the floor. Slowly start to walk the hands back in. And when the hands are back under the shoulders, round the back again. And then take the bottom back to the heels, reach the arms out in front, finding a child pose. Moving back towards that 4-point kneeling. And then just take the weight slightly over the wrists, so your shoulders are slightly forward, and lower yourself down all the way. And once you're down onto your front, just take the elbows under the shoulders, finding a Sphinx pose here. So again, looking at where can I create space in the chest, where can I create space for the breath. If you feel quite open today and you want to take this a little deeper, you might press the hands into the mat and push the elbows off of the floor. Lowering back down if you lift it up, and then dropping all the way down, taking the hands underneath the shoulders, pushing back to a 4-point kneeling, tucking the toes. And we're going to move to our downward facing dog, our upside down V. So having the feet hip distance, hands maybe shoulder distance, perhaps a little wider. And just notice the backs of the legs for a moment, and you might feel benefit from pedaling the feet out here. To be light in your movements. And then from your downward facing dog, just start to walk feet up towards the hands. Having them about hip distance. And just come into an easy forward fold. You can either let the arms just dangle in space, you might hold opposite elbows. You might prefer to hook onto the big toes, but just try not to have too much tension. Don't start trying to drag yourself down into a fold using the toes as an anchor. Keep everything nice and light. You might want to gently sway, find some movement here. You might prefer to be in complete stillness. And then if you've got the toes hooked, just unhooking them and slowly start to roll up the spine until you come to a standing position. Give yourself time to adjust to being stood up, and just bring the big toes to touch with space behind you to move the feet back. So taking a few breaths in our mountain pose, dropping the shoulders, tucking the tailbone. You might take the hands so the palms shine forwards, lifting the chest. And as we breathe in, reach the arms up towards the ceiling, touching palms together. You might look up if you're okay in the neck. Breathing out, folding down towards the floor. Bend the knees if you need to. Tucking the head in. Breathe in, lifting the chest, finding a flat back so either your fingertips touch or your hands might come onto the shins. Breathing out, folding down. Stepping the right foot back. And stepping the left foot back, finding a plank. Really pushing into the shoulder blades. Take the opportunity to expand across the back of the chest. And then just drop the knees down towards the mat. Lowering yourself all the way down. Keep the hands underneath the shoulders and lift into a baby cobra. You could either keep the hands down or you might want to lift them off, bringing a bit of strength into your back. Lowering back down, tucking the toes, and then finding that downward facing dog again. Taking about 3 breaths here. Gaze to the space between the hands, come onto the toes, bending the knees, and then lightly step or walk up towards the top of the mat, being as light as air. Breathe in, lifting the chest, making a flat back. Breathing out to fold. Breathe in, coming up, taking the arms up, touching the palms together. Breathing out, coming back to your mountain pose. I'm going to move through that again, but I'm going to speed up the movements a bit, but just try to keep movements as light as possible. So breathe in, reaching up, folding down towards the earth. Breathing in, lifting the chest, making a flat back, planting the hands down. You might want to step, or you might want to lightly float the feet back, making sure the elbows aren't locked straight if you're doing this. Lower down, either all the way, or maybe you might hover. And then finding maybe a higher cobra, maybe an upward facing dog if you're feeling open and ready. And then rolling over the toes, with or without your knees, back towards downward facing dog. Again, taking around 3 breaths here. Into the space between the hands, we're going to find our way to the top of the mat. If you need a step, you can come onto the toes, bend the knees, lightly hop or float to the space between the hands. Breathe in, lifting the chest. Breathing out to fold. Breathe in, coming up, taking the arms up, touching the palms together. Breathing out back to our mountain pose. I'm going to take one more of these. So breathe in, reaching up. Breathe out, folding forwards. Breathe in, lifting the chest. Planting the hands, stepping or floating back. Lowering down. Lifting the chest. Back to downward facing dog. from your downward facing dog. Lifting the right leg up towards the ceiling. Keep the foot flexed, have the toes facing down towards the floor, the hips square. Noticing that stretch in the back of the left leg. And then bend the knee, bringing the knee towards the nose. Or stepping the foot through. Help it through if it doesn't quite make it. Drop down to the left knee. So we're finding a low lunge. And then once you're in your low lunge, coming up onto fingertips, either staying here, you might come up, just take the hands on towards the right knee. We might want to reach the arms up towards the ceiling. Try to lift up and out rather than sinking into the hips too much and dumping into the lower back. Remember, we're finding space in the chest today. Reaching the arms round, interlink the fingers. Take a breath in, lifting the chest. You might lift the arms up a little. And then framing that front foot. Taking a half split here, so stretching into that right hamstring. Either keeping the toes down or letting them curl up towards the ceiling. You can either fold into the leg here. If you're still not finding much of an opening or much feedback, you can always just take the bottom back to the left heel and lay over that right leg. Bending back in towards that right knee again, finding our low lunge. And then tucking the back toes, lifting the back knee, and take a step back towards that downward facing dog. Moving through and towards a plank, either dropping the knees or lowering down to hover. Finding that back bend, cobra, upward dog. Back towards downward facing dog. Lifting the left leg up towards the sky, keeping the hips square, flexing the foot, toes down towards the floor, shoulders level. Feeling that opening into the back of the right leg. Bending the knee, bringing the knee under the chest, for stepping that foot through as lightly as you can, dropping down towards the back right knee. So we're in our low lunge. Up onto the fingertips, either waiting here or taking the hands towards that left knee. And reaching arms up towards the ceiling. Finding that opening, that lifting and opening into the chest. You might want to take the arms up a bit wider. Take the hands behind the back, interlinking the fingers, but do it the more unusual way, so the opposite thumb is on top. Breathe in, lifting the chest up, lifting the arms up slightly. And then releasing, framing that front foot, straightening into the left leg, finding your half split. Again, you've got the option of staying upright, or you might drop that bottom back to the right heel, lowering down. Bending back in towards the left knee, finding that low lunge again. Tucking the toes, lifting the right knee, stepping back towards your plank. Either just waiting in a downward dog or lowering down, lifting the chest. Back towards downward dog where we will all meet. We're going to find our way to the top of the mat, so you could walk, step or float. Breathe in, lifting the chest. Breathing out, folding down. And then lifting up, taking the arms up, touch the palms together. Breathing in, back into our mountain pose. We're going to take some balancing poses here. So make sure you have enough space around you. Take the moment to ground into the earth. then taking the weight into the left leg, coming light on the right leg. And just bring that right knee in towards the chest. You might hold around the shin or the back of the thigh, trying to keep the back straight here. Take the left hand onto the hip, either keeping the right knee bent, or you might want to hook onto the right big toe and start working towards straightening the leg. So it might only straighten a little bit, or you might be able to get towards being fully straight. But keep the chest nice and lifted, plenty of space for the breath. Don't compromise your straightness of the spine just to get a leg straight. Now you can either keep the knee bent here or keep the leg straight. We're going to guide the leg out to the side. So if you find this is a bit too much, you might come back to that bent knee and opening the hip in this way. And then bring that right knee back centre. If you can, bring the grip down to take the ankle, and then just bring the heel in towards the bottom. It won't necessarily touch, just depends how much space you have in the front of your leg. Take a breath or two just holding the foot in towards the bottom. And then from here just swapping the grip so the hand is on the inside of the foot. Reach the left arm up towards the ceiling. I'm going to tilt into dancer pose. Just start to tip the chest forward, taking the right leg back, and really pointing that left arm forwards, pushing into that right foot into the right hand, aiming to keep the hips square if you can. Continuing that light, easy breath throughout. And then floating back, upright, dropping the right foot down. Just take the feet back hip wide, maybe slightly wider. Just take a fold down. You might take the elbows again. You might want to sway a little. You might want to take a few deeper sighs. And then just roll up the spine again, coming back to that standing position, bringing the toes to touch. So I'm going to take it on the left side now. So grounding into the right leg, coming light on the left, bringing the knee in towards the chest, hugging it in as close as comfortable. Take the right hand onto the right hip. And then if it's in your practice, you might take the big toe and work that leg towards being straight. Again, keeping that chest lifted, the breath nice and light here. And then beginning to guide that leg out to the side, either with the leg straight or bending into the knee. Bringing the foot back forwards. If you've straightened the leg, bend the knee back in. Take the grip towards the left ankle and just pull the heel in towards the bottom with one or both hands. You might be noticing a stretch in your hip flexor, your quadriceps. That whole area at the front of the body can get really tight from sitting at a desk all day. And then just swapping the grip of your left hand to the inside of the left foot, reaching the right arm up, and then ready, starting to tilt forwards, pointing that right arm in front, lifting the left leg, working to keep the hips as square as you possibly can. Finding a gaze point of the middle finger of the right hand, a bit like Warrior Two. Slowly coming back up, lowering down, and again take your feet hip distance or slightly wider, just roll down, take that fold. Find softness where you can here. You might want to sway. A few deeper breaths. And then from your fold, just walk your hands and feet back. So you're in a downward facing dog. And then just moving in towards a plank. Dropping the knees down towards the floor. Going to work a little bit more into the shoulders and the back and the hip flexors before we find some of our peak sequence of the practice today. So take a few cat-cow stretches again, dipping the belly and then rounding the back. And then next time the belly is dipped, just float that right leg up, knee bent, pointing the toes towards the ceiling. Either holding here in strength, or you might take the left hand back, holding on towards that foot, and start to lift the foot and the hand into each other. So a little bit like dancer pose, but with the opposite hand and opposite foot this time. A few more breaths here. And then releasing out. Just take a rounded, angry cat back. And dipping the belly again. Lifting up the left leg this time, knee bent, toe up towards the ceiling. Either holding here, or take that right arm back towards the ankle or foot, then start to reach upwards and the foot into the hand. Then releasing off, taking that rounded cat back again. Just drop the bottom back to the heels, take a moment in child pose, reaching the arms out in front. Slowly coming back to 4-point kneeling, tucking the toes, lifting the hips, finding that downward facing dog. Making sure you have space over to your left side. Take a breath in, lifting the right leg up. This time bend the knee, opening the hip. Work to keep the shoulders square here, but really bring that heel in towards the bottom, stacking the hips. Either staying here if this is enough, or you might float the right leg over, touching down, finding your wild thing or your flip dog, whatever you wish to call it, reaching into that right hand. Turning back down, back to that three-legged dog. Bringing the right knee through, just popping the knee behind the right wrist, taking the right foot across towards the left hand, drop the left knee down, finding your pigeon pose from here, so sending that left leg back. So taking a moment in the upright position, lifting the chest, breathe in. If you need your hands for support, or you might want to reach the arms back and use a bit of back muscle just to hold you here for a breath or two. And if it's in your practice today, then start to walk the hands forwards, finding your swan pose. Sleeping swan. You might just lower down onto the forearms, or you might lower all the way down to the floor. Beginning to walk the hands back into your high pigeon, tucking the toes, and then stepping back to that downward facing dog. Now make sure you've got space over to your right. I'm going to lift the left leg up, bending the knee, opening the hip. Shoulders square, so really bring that left armpit down towards the floor. Either staying here or flipping your dog. Opening up. Turning back round, reaching the left leg up towards the ceiling again, and then bringing that left knee through behind the left wrist, taking the foot across, finding our pigeon on the other side. Starting off upright here, taking a few breaths here, opening the chest, either with the hands for support or taking the arms back. And then if comfortable, start to walk the hands forward, lowering down. Starting to walk the hands back in. Tuck the toes and then stepping back to your downward facing dog. Now if wheel pose is in your practice, you might want to come with me and explore the next sequence. If it isn't, then you might just want to do the sequence that we just did, revisiting that wild thing and then that pigeon. So if you want to explore this little sequence with me, make sure again you've got space over to your left side. And then we're going to take that three-legged dog again, bending the knee, opening the hip. Then you've got your option to flip over, finding your flip dog. Now this is where it changes. So you're either going to flip the dog back and find your pigeon, like we just did, or if you're coming with me and you've got the space and you think your chest is open enough, just start to reach the right hand down towards the floor. If you've got a really bendy back and open chest, you should be able to do that quite easily. If you're like me and you're pretty tight in your back, you're going to need to bend your knees until that hand comes down and then swapping the grip, lifting the chest. We're now in our wheel pose. So really take some movement here if you wish, or you could just be in stillness for a few breaths. And if you're in your wheel pose, we're just going to lower down onto our back. So if you're in your wild thing, is this time to come into your upright pigeon? If you've come with me and you're now down onto your back, we're going to take a similar variation of pigeon, but it's just going to be an upside down version. So take the right ankle onto the left knee and bring the leg in towards you. Put the arms through that gap. And then you might start to work the left leg away from you. Now it might only come a little bit away and just plant onto the floor here. Or you might be able to take the leg out towards being straight. Remembering, don't force this. Make checking in on the breath. Is the breath still light? Is the breath still easy? Just experiment here. You might prefer to cradle the leg in the hands rather than have the arms through like that. Bringing in close to the chest. So we're kind of in our sleeping swan here, it's just upside down. So if you're with me, just bend into that left knee and bring it back towards that right ankle so your right leg's supported again. And just take that left leg back towards the floor. If you're in your upright pigeon, start to come back to high pigeon and make your way back to downward facing dog. If you're with me, take the right leg off of the left. Just going to roll over to the side, move around for a 4-point kneeling. We're going to all meet back in downward facing dog together, making sure we've got space over to the right this time, because you know what's coming. So this time we lift the left leg up towards the ceiling, bending the knee, opening the hip. You might wait here, or you might come over into your flip dog. again, this is where we separate. So if you're staying in your flip dog, or you might want to just come down towards your wheel pose, take that left hand down, spinning the grip of the right hand, and then there you are, hopefully. Again, move if comfortable, or it could be in stillness. And then if you're in your flip dog, bringing that leg through, finding pigeon on the left side. If you're with me, lowering down. And then we're taking our left ankle onto our right knee. And then we're bringing them in towards the chest. So if you're in your upright pigeon, just reach, take that little back bend, with or without the hands for support. And then start to work your way down towards your sleeping swan. If you're with me, take your hands through the centre, that gap, and start to work the right leg away from the left. So we're either keeping our hands through like this, or if you prefer, I prefer this, you can just cradle that leg in the arms. Checking in on your breath here wherever you are. Is it free? Is it feeling quite easy and smooth? Are you breathing a little bit deeper than you were earlier on? Has the breath moved to a different place? So if you're with me, just bring that right knee back in till it supports that left ankle again, and start to take the leg away. If you're laying in your sleeping swan, then start to work your way back upright, back towards your downward dog. If you're with me, take your left leg off of your right. Roll over the opposite way till you went last time. And we're all going to meet back in our downward facing dog. And then from our downward facing dog, just moving forwards, drop the knees down. And then just take the bottom back towards the heels. This time you might want to take your hands down by the sides of the body, those shoulders have been busy. You want to bring some more expansion into the back of the chest. Take the hands around the heels. Dropping the crown of the head towards the floor, I'm going to lift the bottom up, finding our hare pose. Lowering down if you took your hare pose, and then slowly coming upright. Going to make our way over onto our bottom. Just straighten the legs out in front of you. Take a breath in, reaching the arms up, and then folding forwards. Once you've met your edge, take a breath in, lifting the chest, folding down over the legs. A few more breaths here. And then slowly coming back upright. Going to make our way down onto our back now. So just easing your way down onto your back. Bending in towards the knees. Have the knees together and the feet together. And we're just going to drop the knees out, keeping the soles together, coming into a reclined butterfly. Take the hands where it's comfortable, so either resting on the belly, maybe the legs, or you might want to take them up over the head for more of a chest opener. You might even want to hold on to opposite elbows. arms down from wherever they are, take them to the outside of the legs and just guide the knees back in. So from here we're going to find a little inversion. So just placing the hands underneath the buttocks, reach the legs up towards the sky. In our waterfall pose here, if you have a block handy, you can just place this under the hips. It can be really useful and make your waterfall pose feel even more restorative. So you might stay in your waterfall pose, or you might, if it's in your practice, find your shoulder stand. What's really important with shoulder stand is the neck is safe, so making sure that you're not on the neck at all, it's on the shoulders. That's the name of the posture. So just taking the legs up with control, with strength, and take the elbows as close together as you can get them, with the hands resting on the back. Taking the legs up straight. Keeping the head and neck nice and still here. Making sure there's no pressure on the neck. Is the breath still even? If the breath's laboured, then this is probably not a place for you to be in right now. Plows in your practice, just start to bring the feet over the head towards the floor behind. They might not come all the way down. If they do, they might just touch onto the floor. The hands might come out behind you, you might even interlink the fingers. So we're going to find our way out of our plow now. Just laying the hands, these are your breaks, gently onto the mat, and with the legs straight or bent, slowly lower the back down. Really slowly, there should be no free fall at all here. At any point you lose control, and you sort of flop out of it, then you know that you shouldn't really be visiting shoulder stand. So we're all lowering down now, lowering out of your waterfall pose, down onto our backs. Bending in towards the knees, picking up the right leg, taking it over the left. Take the arms to a T or a cactus shape, lift the hips over to the right before letting the knees drop to the left. The head might look over the right shoulder, or it might prefer to be upright towards the ceiling. Opportunity to really send the breath into the right rib cage, the side of the body. Bring in a bit of an abdominal brace here to bring the knees back through centre, straightening up the hips, taking the right thigh off of the left and crossing the left thigh over the right. Lift the hips up, take them over to the left before allowing the knees to drop over to the right. Embracing the abdominals, bringing the knees back centre, taking the thigh off of the leg, and then just bring one knee into the chest and then the other. You might wrap your forearms around, bring your forehead up towards your knees, hugging in tightly. And then just laying back down on towards the mat. Separate the knees about as wide as the shoulders, flexing the feet. Take the feet up and find our happy baby. So holding on to the ankles or the inside or the outside of the feet here. Just making sure the elbows are on the inside of the legs. releasing the feet or the ankles, bringing the knees back together, dropping the feet down towards the floor. Just heel toe the feet about as wide as the mat, let the knees drop in together. Just rest the hands onto the belly or the chest, or you could take one hand onto the chest, one hand onto the belly. We're just going to revisit our breath, like we did at the beginning of the class. Just noticing any differences now. Noticing any different to where the breath is. Or maybe it's slightly different, maybe it's deeper. Maybe it just feels fuller, maybe you just feel like you have more space to fill with the breath. Maybe the sensations you have feel different, but you can't really find words for them, and that's okay too. Spending the last few moments observing this. And then we're going to find our Shavasana from here, so just take the legs out to that, either that traditional starfish-like shape, or you might prefer to lay on a side to take your Shavasana. Just letting go of any breathing practice here. Allowing the focus just go inwards for a few minutes. There's nothing else to do. Beginning to bring in some deeper breaths. If it's the morning, you might want to take a few Really deep breaths, bringing energy back into the body, preparing for your day. Or if it's in the evening, you might want to just bring enough energy in to move, but not too much, because it'll be time to settle down again for bed shortly. Just begin to start bringing movement back in, so starting off with a really small movements in the extremities, and then making those movements larger when you feel ready. You might want to take a full body stretch here, finding a little bit more space, and then just roll over to a side, lingering on that side for a few breaths. Beginning to flutter the eyes open if they were still closed. And then just finding your way round slowly to a seated position. And once you're in your seated position, just bring the palms together at the centre of the chest. We'll just take one final breath together. So taking a breath in, and then breathing out. Thank you for sharing your practice with me. Namaste. Hope to see you again soon.